Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He's Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. It's all brought to you by plainscoffee.com. Go to promo code, or use promo code rather, Braves. Get your 10% off. And he is back from what I said was prison. However, it was spring training. Probably felt like that at some point in time, but and we'll get to an overall consensus of what all took place. But I've been most interested this spring, Lindsay, especially with the articles coming out on Braves Today, is the pitching. And, something that has stood out to me already. Number one, Strider's curveball. But number two, the old man, this time not Morton, Chris Sale, seems to be back, not true to form. I mean, we're never going to expect him to be what he was, I guess, 7 years ago. But he still looks really good since he's healthy. It seems like he's moving better. Ball's moving better. Pitchers are moving better. And he looks like he's got a new lease, I guess, a new lease on life in the Braves organization.
Yeah, and that's the big thing for me when you bring up Chris Sale to fans of other teams, more specifically Boston Red Sox fans, is one, they don't think that he's actually healthy now, and they don't expect him to stay healthy. And we have numbers, we have data that shows he is healthy now. You kind of touched on it. The pitches are moving more, right? A lot of people have talked about Chris Sale's velocity being in the mid to upper 90s. He struck out a guy on a 97 mile an hour fastball, and he didn't hit, his average fastball is a couple mile an hour faster than it was last year because he's finally healthy. But the big thing to me, and we put this on the site, was his slider has gotten a lot of its movement back. So kind of give you an idea of what he was facing last year. He missed time with that shoulder issue that he had. And even when he was playing, he was getting plenty of strikeouts. His slider only averaged about 11 inches of horizontal movement, which is actually below MLB average, right? MLB average comes out to about 12 or so. And on Sunday in his start, we had StatCast data for it. It came out to 14 and a half inches of movement in the start, and he maxed out at 20 inches. And so not only is he averaging an above average amount of movement, but he's able to get even more when he needs to get the strikeout. And so, the slider's a pitch that was good for him last year. It had above average run value production, things like that. But if he can get even more movement on it, combining that with his fastball being back into the upper 90s, Chris Sale's back, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily going to say that he's going to have one of those 2016 kind of years again, where he's going to be a third or fourth place finisher for the Cy Young. But I do think it's maybe a better version of Chris Sale than what you saw in Boston outside of maybe that 2018 season. And to me now, the real question just comes down to how much does Atlanta ask him to pitch and what kind of innings does he get in the regular season? Because the stuff obviously was good enough to get outs last year. It's even better now. It's just a matter of how much do you use him, right?
He has been so impressive, and we mentioned this on a previous pod as well, against lefties. And the reason being is just because of his delivery, that coming from the side, coming from the outside in, it looks like, and left-handed hitters have said that. The Braves that have batted against him and the inter-squad stuff where they've taken live batting practice off of the pitchers, they've said it's difficult because it feels like he's stepping in the front of the box with you, and then he's letting the ball go. And they said, and that slider gets on them faster than he's throwing it. You're looking at it. They said the slider feels like it's 90 plus because he's so long and lanky. And his release point and his delivery, he said it's not that it confuses him. They said it's just tough. It's a timing issue. It's a real tough timing issue for him.
Yeah, it's something where when you're kind of looking at there's the actual velocity of the pitches, but then there's what's called perceived velocity. And that's a combination of the extension, how close to the plate are they when they release the ball. The release point, him having a lower release point means he can get his body closer to the ball or to the plate when he releases it. And just from having seen him throw a little bit from kind of behind home plate back there in the stands while he was warming up, you can kind of see that he releases the ball and it's in line with the left-hand batter's box, right? It looks like every time he lets go of the ball, it's going to hit you. And then sometimes it'll barely make it into the zone on a fastball. Sometimes it'll sweep all the way out of the, off the plate into the other batter's box, and just trying to figure that out as a lefty is incredibly tough. And so, that's kind of what you're talking about. But then also righties as well. You never know, is that pitch going to come inside? Is it going to stay in the zone? Is it going to stay away? And so having all that movement on the slider and being able to run it up extra or dial it back to just kind of, above average movement means that he can steal a lot of strikes by catching the outer third, backdooring something, things like that. And so we haven't seen this version of Chris Sale in a couple of years, and I'm hopeful we'll see him for a while this season. Again, it's just a question of how much do you choose to use him.
Yeah. And if he stays away from some of the freak accidents too, because that's
no riding a bike, Chris.
Yeah.
Don't ride a bike this season.
Yeah, and then Matzik's out there throwing snakes at players, and you got Ronnie
Mentor, yeah.
Oh, Mentor, yeah.
Yeah.
Mentor's out there, and he's scaring Ronnie, who's already got a bum knee, and what do we have him doing? We got him high-stepping across the parking lot. Don't throw that in front of Chris Sale, please, because that'll be the freak accident that completely does something wrong. You had a chance to actually, because you and I were talking about an interview that you did with him, and he spoke to the media. His spirits seemed to be up. He seemed to be in a good place, Chris Sale, with being with the Braves. I mean, I know he was. We saw that interview that he did from the facility early that that got shared on social media and that kind of thing. But this was more along the lines of after his outing and all that, you guys had a chance as media to kind of visit with him. What's a read on him? I guess I should say, Lindsay, what do you get from him when he talks?
He's happy to be here, and he appreciates the fact that the fans are kind of not only giving him the benefit of the doubt, but they're actively behind him. They're cheering them. And he discussed the fact that, like, as athletes, obviously you get energy from your teammates, from the situation in the game, things like that. But the fans can bring energy as well. And he's already noticed that the fans have been very receptive to what they're trying to do, have been very vocally behind them. And it's something where, if you think about it, he's seen the other side of that. And he mentioned that. Like, he's seen in Boston when the fans were not happy with them, what it was like as a player. And he appreciates the fact that in Atlanta, they are getting, I guess not Atlanta, but in Northport, they are getting good support from the Atlanta fans, and he likes that. And so it's everything that you're looking for a guy to have a rebound year, because he's healthy, he's got all of his stuff back again, and he's in a much better environment, both, I guess, mentally and from a team support standpoint, to have a great year.
I'm kind of curious how he's going to feel when, I forgot if it was Murphy or Olsen, one of them had mentioned it in passing, where they said, it's just really weird to play a Wednesday night game and the stands be 94% full whenever, like that. Yeah. When you come from like and the Red Sox do put fans in the stands, but they're very vocal and they're very loud. And sometimes the fans in the stands are not necessarily from Boston. Fenway's such a tourist attraction that Boston fans are listening right now, and they're like, I live in Boston. I go to okay, bub. Yeah, my sister lives there too, and it's tough for her to get tickets as well. So it is brought to you by none other than Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com for more information on what all you can get, including teas. But if you want to get started early on that pumpkin spice, you can do that as well. They're going to go ahead and ship it straight to your doorstep. They don't even start roasting the beans until you make your order. Coffee, tea, whatever you may. And you can just get regular coffee. Somebody asked me the other day, they heard the read, Lindsay, and they said, can you get just regular coffee? Yes, they have that too. It's just the features down at the bottom show that they have the flavored stuff in case you want it. So go to plainscoffee.com, promo code BRAVES, get your 10% off. One of the other arms that has been out there is Hurston Waldrup. And he is showing signs. You had an article on that a little bit earlier, looking at like upper 80s as far as his average. But I think the thing that you said stood out is that splitter that seems to be he's able to locate and actually be effective with.
Yeah, the fastball velocity, upper 90s, no worries there. We knew he was good. But the splitter it's already a rare pitch, right? Very few guys have thrown a splitter in MLB recently. This is the year of the splitter. You're going to see a lot more splitters. But his is extraordinarily unique because it's not only thrown hard, it's like 87 miles an hour, but it has very, very low spin. And on a splitter, less spin is better. Long story short, you hold it or you throw it exact same arm speed as a fastball. You're using the fact that it doesn't spin to lower the speed and to cause the vertical drop. And Most splitters come out 1,000, 1,100 RPMs. Hurston Waldrup on Saturday against Toronto averaged 574 RPMs on the pitch. It is not only a low spin splitter. If he was in the majors last year, it would have been the lowest spin splitter in all of baseball. Yeah. And because of that, he's incredibly unique because he can get really good spin rates on his slider, and then he can also get very low spin rates on his splitter, and that's not an easy thing to do. And so it kind of gets back to the theory that I've had on here and other places about with pitching, you want to be unique, right? You want to do something that hitters aren't used to seeing and that batters aren't used to facing.
Right.
And his combination of a high spin slider, a high backspin fastball, and a low spin splitter is phenomenal. And so like the closest comp to him as far as that splitter and what it can do is Felix Bautista, the closer for the Orioles, who last year was an 11th place finisher in the Cy Young. He went 8-2 and had 33 saves, struck out 110 batters in like 61 innings. That's the closest comparison to Hurston Waldrip's splitter is Felix Bautista. He's also 6'8", 285. And his splitter is around the same speed. It's like 88, but it's like 900 RPMs. So Hurston Waldrup is incredibly unique. And the ceiling on that pitch is absolutely phenomenal. The question here is just going to be for me, at what point are you ready to test him in the majors? I don't think he's going to win the fifth starter job. We've talked about that before. But at what point are you ready to see him in the majors? And at what point does he come up and stay up? Is that 24? Is that 25? I love the ceiling of Hurston Waldrup, and I'm really curious to see how they use him in Gwinnett and how soon he makes it to Atlanta, because that's an incredibly unique pitch, even for a pitch that's already really unique.
Yeah. Well, I firmly predicted, and this is kind of paint myself in a corner here. I said that he would be up this year. And the reason I said he'd be up this year is I thought that there was a good reason why anytime his name got called out in the offseason for being a trade possibility to get a starting pitcher, AA was like, just stop throwing that name out. That guy's not going anywhere. So that made me think, okay, because the rumor was last year with him moving up so fast. Last year, would we see him? And of course, like you said, he ran out of innings and ran out of time before the season was over with. So now, I don't think, unless barring injury, please knock on wood that doesn't happen, unless a couple of pitchers get injured, I don't think we see him till a little bit later on in the season. But I do think at some point we get to see, we're going to tune into, well, who knows if it'll be Bali or not. I don't know if we'll be watching them by the end of the season or not, but we'll get.
They should be good for 24, but for 25, we have no clue who's going to have the Braves games.
That's what some of the other teams thought too, Lindsay, coming into this. So final thing that I want to talk to you about is just your overall perception of what you saw out of the team while you were down there, because I know it's a little different. It's crazy because pitchers are only throwing an inning, 2 innings. Players are only playing maybe an inning or 2 innings, or at least getting 2 at bats, and then they're done. Or even some of them just got 1 at bat, they were done. And then you got like Ronald, they're just icing his knee. He's not doing anything. And he is now. I will say those who are freaking out, he is taking BP and he's been shagging balls and stuff. So he's not just sitting around with ice packs and heat packs on his knee. He's still moved. They're just not. They know he's going to do something stupid like getting a rundown like he did last time if they put him in the game, so he's not in the games.
He loves baseball, and he does. He just can't stop playing. Most of the players that we talked to, with the exception of Ronald, most of the players we talked to that week were pitchers. But the big takeaway that I've had from the pitchers is how much work everybody did in the offseason to try to be better, whether it's conditioning, whether it's being able to handle the workload, whether it's improving themselves and adding a pitch like Spencer Strider. That's been the big overall takeaway for me from that week, was just how much work they've put in. And everybody said it's World Series or bust. It's World Series or bust. And you're like, yeah, okay, you can think that. Or there might be an assumption that they're just saying that in spring training, but from the way they've talked, that was the focus from when the postseason ended in October.
Right.
That's when they were in the weight room on the second workout of the day or whatever it was. That's what they were thinking about, is I got to finish this set because we're trying to make the World Series next year.
Right.
And everybody's talked about, whether it's Charlie Morton, whether it's Chris Sale, they've talked about all the extra physical conditioning they've done, all of the Sale talked about the extra work he's done in strengthening the shoulder because he had that stress reaction last year. Charlie Morton talked about how, the offseason is the time, and he really knew he needed to put in extra effort to make sure his body was prepared to withstand a full season. Like, they have done a lot of work, and they have not just talked the talk, but they have walked the walk. And so I feel much better about the ability to get to October and still have 2 or 3 or more of your projected postseason starters available. I think that was the big takeaway we've had the last 2 years. Yes, the offense didn't perform, but one of the big takeaways for me has been you were trying to make sure you had enough postseason caliber starters in each postseason. The first one was because of injury. You had Max Fried, who had, I think it was the flu or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Strider was coming off the oblique. This last year, Morton wasn't available because of the finger sprain. Fried had the blisters, all of that. They have done a lot of work, both individually and as a team, to make sure that there's going to be 4 postseason starters available, whether it's adding Chris Sale, it's the work the guys have done, development of Hurston Waldrup and AJ Smith-Shawver. I mean, I can realistically sit back right now and say I can think of 6 different guys that you would be okay starting a postseason game. And I can't think of the last time we went into a season with that many names on that list. And that's not even counting Ian Anderson, who started Game 3 of the World Series and has time to get back into form before we reach the postseason. Will he? I don't know. But he could be the 7th potential postseason starter, depending on how his summer goes. So that was the big takeaway for me, is how much work individually, organizationally, everybody's done to ensure that they have the pitching for the postseason. And it's just going to be up to the offense to keep it going when October gets here.
How impressive is that too? The old guys, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, they're in there getting extra work done. I mean, that's got to send a message to the young guys that go, hey, there's a reason these guys are still here in the league at the age that they are, because they're doing that extra rep. They're doing that extra strength training to strengthen the shoulder. They're doing that extra strength training to strengthen the back and the hips. And and they know it's, 162 plus games if you're going to make the postseason. So you got to make sure you do it right.
Morton actually talked about that. His first spring training, you still had John Smoltz in the organization. Like, John Smoltz was still there. He was the 40-year-old. And now he's that guy. But he's not as vocal of a leader.
Nope.
He will absolutely, but he leads by example. And so coming in, getting his work in, doing all of his stuff. His first outing on, was it Tuesday, I think? Yes, first outing of the spring on Tuesday, he goes like almost 3 full innings. And it's because he put in so much work behind the scenes every single day to be ready for it. And so that kind of thing rubs off. Chris Sale's single-handed or game day focus and mindset and just hatred of the opponent, that rubs off a little bit on these guys. And it's the veteran influence is stronger than ever. And I think it's something where having an external person come in like Chris Sale and reinforce how everybody felt and maybe take it up a notch is going to pay dividends in October.
And shaping it for the new guys. New guys like Drake Baldwin, which we won't get to today.
Sorry, buddy.
As I will say, you can go to plainscoffee.com, use promo code Braves. Drake, maybe next time, my man. 10% off is what it'll get you with the promo code Braves. He is Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. Lindsay, as always, I appreciate it, my man.
Thanks, buddy.